Let's continue here on Box to Row. We're joined by a gentleman, as a matter of fact, in his second season as the head coach of the Washington football team. Previous to that, spent 9 seasons as the head coach of the Carolina Panthers, named the coach of the year in 2013, 2015 as well, also leading the Panthers to the Super Bowl. He is Ron Rivera, joins us here on Box to Row. Coach Rivera, welcome back to the program.
I appreciate it, Donald. How are you?
Doing really good. Doing really good. It's that time of year. It's football season. We're into the swing. You've got one more preseason game, as a matter of fact, this Saturday. So let me start here. Your thoughts on the preseason and, well, the camp, I should say, and the 2 preseason games to this point.
Well, as far as we're concerned, as a team, I've been very pleased. I really have. We've accomplished a lot. We're really getting to see a lot of our players. We're seeing a lot of good things from our players. So far, the 2 preseason games have been good. I know we only have 3 this year, so it's going to be interesting because, throughout my career, you either played 4 or 5, depending on whether or not you had to play an extra exhibition game or you played in the Hall of Fame game. And so it's kind of interesting to see how these 3 are going to pan out. I do know for us going into it, we're going to use the 3rd and last game as really a big time test for our younger guys, for the bottom half of our roster, to see exactly who's going to win an opportunity on our football team.
You made a lot of off-season moves, a lot that will help bolster this squad. One of the moves was Ryan Fitzpatrick. Now, I know I've watched your press conference. I know you're not, into naming a starter and so on and so forth. But, like Kyle Allen, first of all, Kyle Allen played with you in 2019. He started the season off like 12 touchdowns to no interceptions, had a good first season for you, was doing well last year until ultimately getting hurt. Can you speak to where, meaning Kyle Allen, is at this point, even though we understand that Ryan Fitzpatrick is taking first team snaps?
Well, we have a good quarterback room. The thing that I look at in terms of quarterbacks, there are different types. There are guys that can dominate, just take a game over. We see that with the guy in Green Bay. There's the ultimate game manager in Tom Brady. There's the dynamic guy in Baltimore. There's the guy that's a little bit of everything and does it great in Kansas City. What I'm looking for and what I believe that we need with the player we have is I believe we need to have a game manager that has the ability to every now and then make those plays that you need to give yourself a chance to win. Because I think if we do things right and we come out of this the right way from training camp, I think that's going to be who we are. We're going to be a physical team up front on both sides of the ball. And we're gonna need to make plays at certain times. We're gonna need to manage games at certain times. So I like where that quarterback room is. Fitz is obviously the guy that's got a tremendous amount of experience, a great feel for offensive football. I like what Taylor Heineke brought, especially after last season. But you're right about Kyle. There is something about Kyle that kind of shows you he has that ability. We had a nice run at one point when we were in Carolina, that at one time Kyle was 6-2 for me until things started to fall apart, until people started to get hurt and things like that started to happen, unfortunately. And then last year, I liked what he was doing. I liked the way he was managing the game, and then he got hurt, and which led to Alex Smith's comeback. But for Kyle, I think right now he's getting healthier. He's getting back out there on the football field. He had a good first start last preseason game. In the fourth quarter, and did some nice things for us. So in the 3rd and 4th quarter, excuse me. So I'm excited to watch him again this week.
Ryan Fitzpatrick, obviously, a lot of other acquisitions, upgrades at the wide receiver position, which is interesting in of itself, because you've got a lot of decisions to make at that position specifically. But speak to some of the acquisitions that were made in the offseason to help bolster this roster.
Well, I think the biggest thing, Don, was that we wanted to get faster on both sides of the ball. And so we had an opportunity to do that in our secondary. We bring in William Jackson, who's just a tremendous cover corner, who's got that kind of ability. And we bring Jamin Davis in from the draft. And so we got faster defensively right away. We really did. And now you get Landon Collins back healthy, playing the way he has been this preseason. So it's exciting. Offensively, we had to get faster. We signed Curtis Samuels, who we know from my time in Carolina. We draft Diami Brown with that tremendous speed that he has. The speed we already had in the running back position, we just added a young player named Jarrett Patterson who's going to help add to that. And we just feel like we did the things that we wanted. And then we needed a guy that's used to throwing it deep. And that's where Fitzpatrick comes in as well. Ryan throws a good deep ball. So we're pretty excited about the potential to be a faster team for us.
What's interesting, you mentioned it, you signed a lot of guys these last couple of years that you have familiarity with. A guy, if you don't mind touching on really quickly, a guy we cover here, Tamarick Hemingway, who's a guy that also played with you, tight end, went to South Carolina State, played with you for the Panthers.
The thing about a guy like T is he's a good physical player. And he's a smart guy, understands the offense, been in the offense. And that's one thing you try to do, when you go someplace new, or at least I believe it, is you want some guys that know how to do it your way. So that when the other guys sit there and they start doubting it, he can say, hey, you got to trust him. You got to believe in it. This is what it did for us. So I think when you have a voice like that, and we've had several of them, when you look at our offensive line, Tyler Larson is a kid that played for me on the offensive line in Carolina, and he can talk about having worked with Coach Matsko, our offensive line coach, working with Scott Turner, our coordinator, working with me, and then you look on defense, and we got a kid like Jared Norris who played linebacker and special teams for me, and David Mayo who played as well, and Kolu. So there are a number of former Panthers that are on this roster, but that was done for a specific reason, a specific type of young man too, because you want guys that can sit there and get everybody to understand that this is how it's done. And the reason it's done is because coach wants this done this way, because he believes in this type of a system. And so that's helped me in terms of my connection with this football team, I believe.
Ron Rivera in his second season as the head coach of the Washington football team. He joins us here on BOXTOROW. Chase Young, what a dynamic player, dynamic young man, phenomenal rookie season. Your thoughts on ultimately what this young player can be?
It's an amazing thing because he's such a dynamic personality, and it's infectious, because the way he approaches things, the way he handles things, the way he does things. And because of that, because of his overall attitude, I think attitude is very important for professional athletes. I think attitude is what separates the really great ones. And he has that attitude, I think, to be great. He works so hard at it. He wants it to come true. So he's trying to be great. And because of that, because of who he is, he does have an opportunity to ascend to become an even better player. So we're excited for his potential. We're excited for his growth. We know that, there's no secrets anymore. Last year, everybody kind of wondered, will he be able to? Well, he did it last year and had a good rookie year, which was defensive rookie of the year. So now the expectations are going to grow. And one thing that he and I have talked about is briefly is him handling those expectations and not worrying about what other people want or expect, but more importantly, what does he want? What does he expect? That's what's important.
I feel like you were the right person that the Washington football team needed. So what made the head coach and other duties, which we'll talk about with you, the Washington football team as its head coach, the right opportunity for you?
For me, Donald, it was about the fit. I think it fit me because I love the fact that this is one of the oldest franchises in the NFL. This started in 1932 at the beginning in the NFL. So that to me is very, very exciting. There's a tremendous amount of history and tradition attached with the Washington football team. The fan base is tremendous. It really is. It's an unbelievable fan base. I can remember when I was a player, way back in the days in the 80s, coming out here to play in a playoff game and then coming out and playing the regular season and feeling this, old RFK shake, rattle,
right,
roll even.
right.
I mean, it was impressive, and I loved the family. I really did. I thought, God, what a great spot. So then, when time came to start the interview process with Mr. Snyder, and one of the things that I had been studying had been his roster. I took a look at that roster, and I looked at where they were, and I looked at the potential for growth, and the things that they had, and I looked at some of these young guys and just thought, man, if these guys get an opportunity to mature together, if we can keep a group like this and add on to it, we'll have a chance. And that's what really drew me to this. Plus, Mr. Snyder had this idea of what he calls coach centric, and that's an approach where, we're not going to put a general manager and a football czar over the top of you. Okay, we're going to have these guys work with you, work alongside, and do the things that you need to get done, get the players that you want to add on to your football team, to our football team. And so that's what drew me to that was, I was going to get to make some decisions, that I was going to be responsible for helping to put this team together and get it going in the right direction. And then the other thing was he talked about wanting to change the culture. Culture has always been a big word for me. It was one of the things that we used when we were in Carolina, that was talking about culture and developing a culture. And so one of the things that I talked about was that I have this vision that I want to build a sustainable winning culture here. And to me, culture really is about doing things the right way, following a certain set of core values and sticking to those core values. And then when things are good or things are bad, you live by those core values, because that's what keeps you on the right path. And that's kind of how I felt. And Mr. Snyder believed it. He agreed with me. And so that is really what drew me here, was the opportunity to coach for one of the oldest and most traditional franchises with a tremendous history, a great fan base, and potentially a good young roster with an owner that was willing to allow me some of the levity that was needed to do what I believe we can do here.
Ron Rivera, of course, the head coach of the Washington football team in the second season, joins us here on the program. I think the point about culture is spot on. So, if you look at the organization and you look at sort of the top, and even some of the, you look at assistant coaches, for instance, it's yourself. You have Martin Mayhew as the general manager, President Jason Wright, Jennifer King, a female assistant coach. Sort of speak to that. You are all persons of color in upper management. And then again, when you mentioned Coach King as one that is an assistant coach on your staff.
What's interesting about this, Donald, was in 2015, when we went to the Super Bowl when I was in Carolina, I was doing one of the press conferences that you have to do during the Super Bowl. And somebody had made that mention, said to me, Coach, did you know that you have the most diversified coaching staff in the NFL at the time? And I said, no, I didn't realize that. They said, really? Well, how'd you get to that point? And I said, well, honestly, I hired who I believe were the best people available. And what was interesting as I started going through this, that's really how I've done it. What happened with, as far as Jennifer King was concerned, she was a woman that I had met at the NFL Women in Football Symposium. I was one of the guest speakers. In fact, my wife, my daughter, and I were one of the guest speakers at the original symposium that was held in Orlando, and that's where I met her. And so we developed this relationship through this conversation we had there. I found out that she was coaching women's college basketball right next door to us at Johnson and Wales, which is literally, the campus is right next to our practice facility. So I invited her out and come find out a little bit about it. She played women's professional football. She's coached professional football on the women's side. She's coached kids youth football. And so I invited her over. She came over, she watched for a little bit. And then the next year I got her in and had her did an internship for us during OTA's minicamp to training camp. And she did it again for us. And then the following year she got a job working at Drake. Or not Drake, was it Drake? I think it was Drake. But anyways, she worked for one of the universities there. And I'm sorry, it was Dartmouth. She worked at Dartmouth.
Okay. All right. And
had a great time. In the meantime, her and I stayed in touch. I invited her to do an internship with our offense last season. And I just wanted to make sure she was ready. And I really appreciated her effort and her passion. And when the opportunity came to hire her full time, I did, because I think she deserved it. And so that's how that came about. Hiring Martin last year was easy for us because he was very qualified. He's somebody I was very familiar with. I loved his philosophy on acquiring players. I know he's had the general manager position before, so he knows what that's like. We hired a lot of people with experience. We brought Marty Herney in as a senior vice president of personnel and football operations to work alongside Martin, a former general manager. We have Chris Polian to handle our college side, our pro side, who's a former general manager, and Eric Stokes, who's a former assistant general manager. And so in that group right there of 4 personnel guys, 2 of the 4 are African American, and they have general manager and assistant general manager experience. So what we try to do is hire the most qualified people. And what's interesting about that, and it's kind of what's led me to the whole thing with what we've done with Jennifer, is that as we've gone through this process and we've interviewed people, we are making sure that we interview everybody, and that also includes gender equity. We have hired a number of women in very good positions for us. Our chief of staff on the football side, my chief of staff, Natalia Durantes, is a Latina. She's been tremendous. Diana Heimowitz is somebody that we hired. And both of these women I mentioned both participate in the Women's Symposium in football. She works in our personnel side. So we are looking to hire the best and people that have done things that make them qualified. And that's really what that's about more than anything else, Donald.
Awesome. Last 2 thoughts, Coach Rivera. Ron Rivera, the head coach of the Washington football team, joining us here on the program. The last year for you, year plus, the pandemic, you beating cancer. Even you being able to get through that season in the manner in which you did with all of the treatments and so forth. When you reflect on that, what most comes to your mind?
Wow. A bunch of things go through my mind. First of all, just how happy I was for this organization to come out on the other end. Based on everything that we started with and all the situations, circumstances we had to deal with from the time I got hired all the way up to winning the division, I was very happy for the organization, for the ownership, the coaches, the players, the organization, because we went through a lot. We really did. So just knowing that we came out on the other side of it all was really, I think, a victory in itself. For me personally, just everything that I went through personally as an individual, it just reflected on my family and the people that supported me. I was very fortunate, very lucky. And, just in all honesty, the elation of when January 28th, when I got my results of my PET scan, that basically said I was cancer free and in recovery, that was elation. That really was. I can't describe how excited and happy we are, and feel very fortunate and blessed.
Wow. Last thought, your days, what do you remember most about those days with the Bears, the Super Bowl? That 85 team was something special. You weren't part of the Super Bowl shuffle.
Yeah. A quick story on that, Donald. We shot the team shot the video the day after we got beat on Monday Night Football by Miami. It was the only loss. That game finished right after midnight. We got on the airplane to fly back home, and Willie Galt was in charge of organizing the players, and he was trying to get guys to come do it. And I would say probably 50% of the team showed up, 50% didn't. In fact, there's a number of guys that weren't there for the original taping that were done on a blue screen. I believe Singletary, William Perry, Jim McMahon, and Walter Payton were the 4 guys I believe that they blue screened in to get them into it. They really felt they needed those guys on it. So it was really cool. For me personally, there was no way I was getting up after we landed like about 3 o'clock in the morning, because you had to get downtown around 8:30, 9 o'clock for the shoot. And so I didn't. That's one of my only big regrets with the Super Bowl team. But, when I do think about it, I think about the thrill and the excitement of it all. I think about the experience. The city of Chicago, the fan base of Chicago. That's what being here in the Washington, Virginia, Maryland area reminds me of, is that type of fan base that has a tremendous history and association with its team. And we're trying to get our fan base back, because I tell you, you want to talk about home field advantage with that kind of a fan base behind you, it gives you something. That's the extra element you look for. I think when things are going in the right direction and you can get those people behind you and help create that momentum and excitement, you have a chance. You really do. And so that's what we have to do, is we've got to do something good to bring our fan base back. So we're working on it, because we'd love to have them here.
Well said. They couldn't have blue screened you, Coach Rivera?
I wasn't worthy. I wasn't worthy.
Ron Rivera, in his second season as the head coach of the Washington football team, gracious enough to joining us here on Box to Row. Coach Rivera, really appreciate the time. It was great to catch up with you. Continued success to you and the Washington football team.
Well, I appreciate this, Donald. Let's don't wait 5 years to do it again, all right?
Absolutely. You got it.
All right. Take care.
Okay, be good. You too. Thanks.